Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazal Ministries podcast.
If you were caught in a time loop, what day would you choose? Or more importantly, what day would you not choose? Hello, fellow geekologists. Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. We are your priest to the geeks, and it's time to geek out. On today's episode, we are going to review an indie sci-fi-ish, horror-ish film from 2017 called The Endless. And we promise you, my friend and I, my co-host, Evan and I, don't worry, we're not going to have the endless podcast. We're not going to go on forever and ever and ever and ever. We'll see what we both like this movie, not to bury the lead. So we could talk forever, but I think we're going to make sure it's not the endless podcast or some kind of time loop that has us going crazy. We'll make sure that we don't do that today. This is a part of our annual theme of religions in our fandom, and we'll talk about what religion is in this movie and what fandom it represents and all those good things. But first, let me introduce to you my co-host, my partner in crime tonight, my partner in geek, I would say, Evan Garcia. Evan, how are you doing? What's going on? And what are you geeking out on?
Hey there, Will. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on today. Thank you. I am looking forward to the talk about the film. What I've been geeking out on is it's something pretty silly, but I turned out that I really liked it. It's the Skibbity toilet videos on YouTube.
Okay,
it's kind of a series almost, which I was surprised by. There's like 75 episodes. Very good. Very good.
Okay.
Like, it grabbed me, and I was very impressed with how just raw bones the story is, and it's just a blast. It's just a bunch of action and some community building and stuff. And I can totally see how and why Michael Bay is going to make a film about it, because it's like the pinnacle Michael Bay genre.
So this is a YouTube series. What's the official name, or subscribe? What's the name to subscribe
the
to?
Channel is, I don't know if we can say it, but it's the fuck.
No, yeah. There you go.
So,
beep. Hey, there you go. It's all right. Yeah. We sometimes drop some cuss words. Our people know it. But yeah, I mean, we're on YouTube, and I comb YouTube. A lot of my TV and kind of catching up with what's going on in pop culture and TV and in the news and sports and stuff usually is I comb YouTube. And so, hey, folks out there, if you listen to this and you're just listening to the podcast, hop over to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, subscribe. If a video on our YouTube channel gets 50 or more likes, I will frolic through a field of flowers, and they're going to record it and put it on YouTube. So there's the lure for doing that. But yeah, we're fans of that stuff. That's cool. It's funny that you can go down that rabbit trail, and your algorithm will choose some things for you. You might like this, and then you click on it, and then before you know it,
I reached out for it because because my son saw some stuff on YouTube about it. So I was like, let me figure out what this is. And so I was hooked. And then the next morning, we were talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was like, what are you guys talking about? What are these toilet people and the screen heads and the camera? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's definitely a language or a code. You're like, maybe that's on purpose. When people start talking about it, like, what is that? Let me know what's going on. The mystery box is there. That's cool. Yeah, I love that. Learning something new. That's what we do here at Systematic Geekology. We share what we geek out on, and oftentimes I learn what other people geeking out, and then I haven't heard that, and I'll go after it. So most people have heard what I'm geeking out of before. Of course, it's Star Wars, but it's a different angle. We have to acknowledge that the passing of James Earl Jones at, I think it was 92 or 94. He was in his 90s, and the voice of Darth Vader, man, and so many others, Field of Dreams and Mufasa, and just iconic voice and iconic actor who had a great run, and from what I hear, a super nice guy, and love it. So we have to acknowledge the passing of a legend. Especially, I will never forget being a kid in the theater and seeing A New Hope in the theater and Darth Vader entering the screen, and I was like, who is that? This menacing villain? Is it a robot? Is it a human? Is it both? The mystery of who this guy is and how strong he is and all that just captured everything. Just the pinnacle of villainy. And of course, we learned what his full story is as Anakin, and the rise and the fall and the redemption of Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. But I had to go out the other night when he was passing. I had to pull up iconic scenes of Darth Vader on Disney Plus, and we're just geeking out hard on that. So, Evan, I know you're a Star Wars fan. How'd that hit you?
It sideswiped me, man, because I was like, dang. Because he was one of those he was one of the first ones that I knew, like, okay, George Lucas was the director and James Earl Jones was the voice of Darth Vader. In my little 10-year-old mind, I thought that was so cool, that I knew the name of the actor and stuff like that. So, so he was one of the first ones that I saw the behind the scenes of, and it was very special to me because growing up, I was a stutterer, and then like I was told that he stuttered too. And the day,
wow,
yeah, and when I remember I was like 12 or 13 years old when someone told me, and then I watched episode 4, and you can clearly tell the mechanisms he's using, to not stutter. He's using so many, like that famous cadence that he has was basically a way to not stutter. I was like flabbergasted. I was like, wow, he can do that. Dang. And I can too. So he was a big inspiration for me there too.
Man, that's super special. I did not know that story, and so I feel like I have a PhD in geek, but I'm still learning. And you tell me that story, I didn't hear that story, and for him to be a role model for that and have such an iconic voice, but then to be a role model for you and others, that's pretty special. I love that. So, folks, before we get into the meat of this episode of talking about the Endless movie, I thought that we would have just a quick moment of silence for James Earl Jones. There you go. All right. To you, a lightsaber tilted in the air for James Earl Jones and the rise and fall and redemption of Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker. All right, let's get into the episode. Let's talk about this. All right. So we're talking about a movie that I had never heard of before, The Endless. And I'm like, okay, I've never heard this. We had a suggestion that this would be a part of a podcast and part of our religions and our fandoms. And it was an indie film. It was part of the Tribeca Film Festival 2017. Two brothers directed and starred in it, and yes, like a low budget. I don't know how low budget it was. I don't know what their budget is. I didn't research that, but it looks like a lower budget indie film. It's almost 2 hours long, and I really liked it. And so the religion that's within this movie is definitely a cult. So there's the cult, a cult, and then you're wondering if they are what's going to happen with this cult, who's the victim, if what they're really saying is real or not. What do you believe? What do you not believe? Are they telling the truth or is it manipulative? All those things revolve around the kind of skepticism around a commune or a cult that you're like, something shady is going down over here. And it has elements of sci-fi and horror because it's kind of a thriller. And so I think when we've talked about other different religions that show up in our fandoms, whether it's Christianity or Judaism, Islam, Mormonism, Hinduism, Shintoism, how is it portrayed? And I think, often as geeks, so people of faith will look at movies that portray religion and there's that stereotype that is not portrayed well, that they get it wrong or they're picking on us or whatever. And then there's some TV shows and movies who do it right. And even our fandoms, sci-fi, that tends to sometimes be a culture that maybe the stereotype is it's a little hesitant to get near religion because most geeks have been burned by religion, whether they're a fan of anime or sci-fi or Dungeons and Dragons. Let's just say that Christianity is often not very nice to the people who geek out on that stuff. And so, of course, they would portray it that our particular faith not in the best light because of the way they've been treated. But so us going through our fandoms, you can go through the list and check out what we've looked at and talk about. But definitely a cult or the occult is in this film. And I went into it clean slate, not seeing a trailer, not knowing anything. What is it going to tell me? What's going to happen here? And I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed the mystery, the thrill of it all, the see. You really don't know who's going to be the villain or who's going to be a good guy or who's not. You're just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so that to me was pretty fun to watch, just a clean slate with now any hype with it around it. So before we share what we kind of our rankings and that kind of stuff and getting to the meat of what's portrayed here, how the cult is portrayed, what can you give like a short synopsis, Evan? Do you think like the plot line,
Sure.
maybe like a 2-minute synopsis, and I'll kind of fill in some gaps there. What does this mean? Kind of spoiler free. What was this movie about? If somebody said, "Hey, I heard that it's endless." What is it about? Without spoiling it, what would you say?
I would say it is a story about a relationship between two brothers and they coming out, how the dynamics of the two brothers coming out of a high control religion / cult.
Right.
And yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's pretty straightforward.
Yep. They get out of it, and the movie starts with them kind of out of it as like dealing with life post escaping this commune / cult.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realize that their lives are pretty dull and boring and hard, and it's hard to pay the bills, and they're poor and they're having a hard time working and eating. And so they're like, man, we got to go back. Or at least one of the brothers, like, we got to go back.
Right.
Because we had it better back in Egypt. No, we had it back in, we had it back. At least we had food on our place, or something. So let's go back. And they do get this videotape that's kind of like mysterious videotape of a person that they were in the cult with, and it kind of lures them back to the cult. And then once they're there, one brother is very open to be like, they're not bad people. Let's hang out and just see what's going on. And the other brother is very skeptical, and it's like, we need to get out here. We need to get out here. And so then the rest of the movie is really trying to see this commune and cult through their eyes of what they're discovering, and this kind of mystery box slowly being opened in front of us until you get to the end. And there are some things revealed at the end. Not everything's revealed, but a lot is. And then so that's our kind of spoiler free. Do they escape? Do they not? Go from there. And I will say before we rank that a big part, the name of this movie is The Endless. And Evan, I don't know about you, but when I finally figured out, like in the third act, that there are some people in this commune, in this cult, in like a time loop, I was like, pointing at the screen like the DiCaprio meme of like, oh, that's why it's called the endless. That's because it's endless. They're in this endless time loop. There's something going on, this supernatural thing that's happening. And I was like, oh, that's why it's called the endless.
The fact that the movie didn't have to say the title, they just presented it to us. I was like, touche. That was nice.
Yeah. Did you? When was that revelation to you in the movie?
Around the same time when that one brother got lost into the field or something, when he just got lost, I guess.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, hold on. That's what we're doing here. Okay, all right. That's where we're going.
Yeah. And there's that, we talked about before when we talked about Groundhog Day. It's like if you were in like a daytime loop or you had to live the same day over again or same moment over and over again, what would you want it to be? That it could, something like that could drive you mad, or it could be like, dude, this is the best experience ever. I want to live this day over and over again. But this particular cult, you don't want to be in a loop. It was like, oh boy, yeah, a nightmare situation.
Some of the loop captives, I guess you can say.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious as to why they got into that loop in the first place. I didn't see the main ones from the cult. I could see why, but Crazy Dan, something like that. Like I was like, why is he in this loop in the first place? And then, so there must be some. Well, I don't know if we want to talk about it now, but there's a reveal of a higher power / monster going on.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. There's definitely supernatural stuff, and I will say that like this movie isn't for everybody. If it's horror-ish, it's sci-fi-ish, but there's some talks of suicide and depictions of suicide and seeing people who have taken their own lives, and we don't take that lightly because we know that people wrestle with that, and that out there in the world in Geekland, if you're wrestling with those kind of questions and thoughts, please reach out and get help. Go to the suicide hotline and reach out to us, and we'll find out if you're not alone with what you're going through. So we are sensitive to that, and this movie does. There are some. I do want to do like a trigger warning because it does depict some vivid images of people taking their own lives, and so you'd be aware of that. It's not a show for kids. So yeah, I believe that. So. All right. So before we get into some spoiler and really dive in deep, doing some geekology in this and excavating what's underneath the surface with this, what would you rank this film out of like 1 to 10?
Oh man, 7.8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dug it. Like once I figured out what it was saying, and I was like, I like what it's saying. And the relationships with the characters, the production value, I was sold.
Yeah,
I was sold. But it's one of those films that I wasn't sure if what I was understanding was what the movie was trying to tell me. So I did have to look up some reviews because I thought maybe I was going crazy because not to the fault of the film, but it's kind of ambiguous in that way where it leaves it up to the people to figure out. Mm-hmm. So which I can respect if it's done right. And here, I think it was done pretty well. And yeah.
If you'd like to support our show, please consider joining our Patreon, where you get live access to our YouTube exclusives, including our comic book catch-up, manga mustard, drinks with Tejas, and our companion series that we do each year with our annual theme. You can also get exclusive merch, including t-shirts, handbags, a coffee mug, and a long sleeve shirt. We also have available bonus extra questions at the end of most of our podcast episodes. You get access to exclusive Discord channels, discounts on our store, access to any future online D&D campaigns. You get to vote on topics for some of our episodes. You can easily access all of the Patreon content right through Spotify now. So super easy. Go to our Spotify page at the top. It's going to say exclusive content for subscribers. If you're a patron, hit that button. You get all of our bonus content right there on Spotify, right with your regular feed. And of course, you get the satisfaction of knowing you helped a podcast in need. Our overhead includes editing software, marketing equipment, recording software, and a lot more. And there's a lot that goes into keeping the lights on here. And we really appreciate all of our patron subscribers for helping the show happen.
I agree with that. It took me a little while. I'm so used to watching the big blockbuster, and if I'm going to watch a movie and spend my time with 2 hours in front of a movie, I'm going to go to the theater and see it, or pull it up on a streaming service and go for the big time, big budget movies. I don't watch a lot of independent, low budget movies. I'm not that kind of film buff, but once I kind of settled in, understanding what it was and what it wasn't, I really started settling into it, and I give it a good 7.5. I think for me, there were some parts that felt kind of Blair Witchy, and since they hung on some scenes pretty too long and the mystery box is there, and I'm the person who's like, I know what you're doing here. I was very guarded and defensive. I was like, if they go through this whole movie and not show me anything of what's going on, just kind of leave it at the end. I was scared they were going to do that, and I was going to be very mad. So I felt like I was watching on the edge of my seat, not because I was like it was a big time thriller, but I'm like, they better at least reveal something at some point. Please don't be the Blair Witch Project. So that I was sitting with that. But then once I realized what they were doing, what they were saying, and the relationship between the brother and what the endless name was about within the movie, I was like, this is pretty neat. This is pretty cool. And I do think it handled the occult or cults in a way that, is dangerous, but yet and not good and not healthy. And we should be very wary and think critically of cults and communes that turn that way, especially with manipulation and leaders. But it really got to the humanity of the people that are in there, and then the supernatural effect of it lured you into there is something greater or something bigger that's going on here. So you give them a little bit of a break and understand it. So overall, I think it portrayed it well. So I'll give it a 7.5. On a given day, I might give it an 8. On another day, I might give it a 7. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 92%, and then the audience score or another score is like 68%, which I think is fair. I could see where the critics, the professional critics, would be like, "What job well done, Tribeca Film Festival. You should have gotten an award. Good job." Low budget brothers who are directing for the first time, and then maybe the audience who's so used to big budget may judge it a little harsher. But I thought it was good.
I looked up the brothers, and I was very shocked, but not shocked at the same time because I liked it so much. But these two brothers, they went on to work on the Moon Knight series and on Loki season 2.
Look at there. Nice. I liked Moon Knight, and I like Loki season 2. So nice work. Aaron and Justin, who actually play the brothers in the movie. So they're directing and acting at the same time, which is kind of both sides of the camera. It's pretty cool. Cool. So, all right, we're going to do some spoilers. If you're ready for this, we're going to get in a little bit deeper here. The movie opens up with a quote from H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah. And I was like, okay, here we go. And the quote is, the oldest and strongest emotion is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is the unknown. I was like, that's a classic Lovecraft quote. And that kind of set the tone because there's a lot of unknown in the movie and kind of not revealed all at once. And so I think that the fear of the unknown or mystery of the unknown keeps you glued to it, but it makes it definitely on edge, this thing. And like we said, these two brothers, we see them after they've come out and escaped this commune and cult, and they call it a UFO death cult, and the media kind of around them a little bit. You see clips of them being saved and what they were saying about this cult and how they got away. And then eventually they're like, you know what? Life isn't good. And maybe we had it better back there. I'm going back. One brother is like wants to go back, and the other one says, nope, we're not doing it. But eventually they do. And so they rethink old times in different ways. One's like, no, don't you remember this is going on and this was happening? They were manipulative and they were harmful and people that harm themselves and others. And he was like, no, but we ate well and they loved us and they took care of us and we had a roof over our head and shelter and
the peas.
Yeah. and I think that's kind of at the heart of, the cults and communes. There's this longing, or even religion, all of religion itself, like there's this longing to belong and be taken care of and cared for. And so where there's gaps in that in religions or families, people find ways to get that and in ways that may not be very healthy. So eventually do get that's called, and they seem like nice people. They seem like they're just hanging out. Hey, we're not going to force you to be here. We're not going to do any harm for you. But, and there was this little side comment in the movie. Every now and then I was like, well, that sounds culty. Oh, that sounds real culty. Do you mind if it get culty a little bit and use metaphors?
The whole pointing out the use of metaphor. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. That was pretty meta because that's what they're doing.
Yeah. So what at the beginning of the kind of first half when they're getting back, was anything triggered for you in terms of religion or what a cult makes up a cult? And
a lot, yes, there's a lot there, and I kind of related to a younger brother that yearned for a previous time, but the situation wasn't ideal, but that was his childhood,
Yeah.
So I could relate to that, and at the same time I could relate to the other brother where he wants to protect the younger brother.
Right.
And yes, the film was kind of pointing out that he might be overstepping his boundaries a little bit because he's being kind of overprotective. But then we learned that their mother died, I think it was. So he was left with that. And then, they do set up, they pretty much bookend, and they are setting up here what the resolution is, and I kind of saw it coming, but I did like the way that they fleshed it out. Yeah. The whole, and I can relate to a high control place, because there's a freedom in that where they're like, okay, that stuff is being taken care of. I just need to take care of here. Yeah. But then there's some things that you need to have volition over and take it over for yourself.
Yeah, I think, my religious background is I feel like I was brought up in a pretty healthy church and congregation when pastors took care of us and great youth directors and great friends. And I know out there, some people have not had that experience. It could be traumatic and religion can do harm. I never went through an age of deconstruction. They're definitely kind of thought through things and am I still Lutheran? Am I more Catholic? Should I go to something else? I still believe in Jesus, but do we even need churches and religion? So I went through that phase. I never went through I've been harmed and traumatized by religion, so therefore I need to deconstruct it all or get rid of it. But I can understand when religion goes too far in its control and too far in its rule, too far of putting all your hope in an earthly leader that is fallen and manipulative and a broken and simple person who abuse other people. It's just man, it can get ugly fast. People will do people things.
For the pleasure of that person or that thing,
mm-hmm.
and which is something that they touch on later, which I thought was interesting.
Yep. So when they have this, my light went off. Sorry. So you're looking at this kind of. It's funny. At one point in the movie, you think he's the cult leader, and he's like, "You're the leader of this thing. You're a leader." He goes, "No, none of us are leaders here. We're all leaders here." He goes, "I'm just the one who talks a lot. I'm the one who talks too much." Seems like I'm the one who just talks. I'm the one who's more comfortable talking. I'm like, oh, I thought that was funny. Is that often the leaders are the ones who like to be not necessarily the center of attention, but they talk the most and are not short on words.
I was expecting a super charismatic the Kevin Sorbo, Hercules kind of guy, like Fabio with the hair and stuff, But no, he's just a little hipster guy that I like how they played with the age. They were teasing that these people that they still look the same from 10 years ago, and it's kind of creepy.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah.
And that was a clue and an Easter egg of what's going to happen later on with these time loops. And so, like they're just as young as they were 10 years ago. And one brother like looked up to this 20 something, 30 something woman, and he was 10, and they were like, oh man, that's like kind of creepy. And how you're like, she was doing inappropriate things around you to lure you like that and kind of grooming you. And there's like, now he's her same age. He's like, hey, now's my chance. So they lure that. And there was this thing of, you don't know if it's real or not, if they're just a commune or if they believe in this thing and they're going to do a mass suicide. But then they have this tug of war rope out into the darkness.
Struggle.
And so there's this mystery box of what is in that chained up cabin up on the hill. What is in the dark that's grabbing this rope that you don't have any strength to pull against? What is at the bottom of this lake? That's the mystery. So there's these mystery boxes, but really it's the skepticism of one brother is like, nope, that's just somebody up on a ladder in the dark you can't see that's holding this rope. And the other one's like, no, something's really going on. And so that was kind of a turning point that maybe there is something more supernatural going on here and the reason why these people are in this thing. Was that a turning point for you? Like, okay, now we're getting real.
Yeah. And the visual of the rope just going off into the darkness like that, that was cool. That was pretty powerful. It was a cool visual. And the one brother that was, he couldn't believe it. So then he failed the test or something like that.
Yeah. He lost the tug of war, and my wife has said before, sometimes when you're in a tug of war with somebody, sometimes you win by just letting go of the rope. You don't have to use all your energy. And I think about that all the time. When you're in a tug of rope with people, your feelings or whatever, sometimes you just let go of the rope, and that's fine. That's how you win. Don't waste your energy on that. So there is that was a turning point in the movie that there is, and they do say it's a UFO death cult. And you don't know if there really is a UFO extraterrestrial, but they keep referring to a higher power, some greater purpose, and other people who are greater than them, who are there, or keeping them there, or nurturing them, or feeding them, and again, you don't know if it's real or not until this kind of tug of war thing. And for me, I was like, okay, maybe there is. And then seeing some of the reviews that's like sci-fi horror, I was like, okay, there's probably a supernatural element to all this.
Something, yeah.
And that's when the one brother who's skeptical is like, we're leaving, and the other brother's like, no. And I was like, why don't they just split? They kind of split. But it was when the younger brother, the one who wanted to stay, said this. He said, if I go back, I'm going to start living the same day over. I don't want to live that same day over and over and over again. My own life back there outside this cult is a time loop and an endless loop of the same thing every day. I want something more out of life. I'm like, dude, he's got a point. How many of us live? How many of us live in just a day-to-day loop doing the same thing over again, and we get burnt out? It wears us out. We get burnt out. Like what is? Yeah. So how do we shake that up? How do we live a full, healthy life? I thought he had a good point. I'm like, oh man. Okay.
And that shows the dangers of the cult mentality. It's like, it kind of leans into that character that was the magician. He's presenting you something that you like, but in the end, it's really just a illusion and a manipulation.
Illusion and manipulation. Yeah, there's some different characters. One has this creepy smile. One is like a magician. One's like a cute girl who he's hitting on. And then you hear these different stories, and they take time with each person. And I always like editing and stuff. Like they do hang on scenes sometimes too long. But I think, but learning who each of these people are and why they're there and their stories is an important part of the movie. And I think that's another takeaway from this movie is like, we all have a story. Let's take time to listen to it, why we're there, what we're longing for, what we're hungry for. All right, Evan. Then it steps up a level in the third act, and you finally realize that these people, the reason they are young is because they are all in a time loop. And there's certain people that are escaped out in these little zones of wherever they are. They're in these weird time loops. And
like WandaVision and her little dome thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you get the sense that there is like this dome or UFO or some alien that's keeping them there, experimenting with them or something. But there is this time loop where they just can't get out of a day or a week or a moment.
That from the inside of one of those domes, you cannot see the other domes.
Right.
So that was throwing me off. I'm like, wait a minute, but that guy was just there. But why did he just kind of just all of a sudden show up here? And I'm like, oh, okay. So they kind of mess with it. They kind of mess with it spatially like that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like there's this quote, let's get a little culty here. And there is this kind of self-awareness of what a cult is and what they're doing and what they're not doing and those kinds of things. So there's this, this self-awareness that they have in there, but also they're in a real situation, a dangerous situation of a time loop. And how do you escape these time loops? Now, you watch the movie for yourself. There is like a time loop of somebody who literally hung himself, and then he sees his own self being hung there, and the freaky part is that the one brother who's skeptical is like looking at the guy who hung himself and the guy who's alive. So how can he be both at the same time?
Yeah, that took me a second to realize what was going on.
Yeah. Super vivid and like, not pleasant to see, but, and that you get the urgency of this loop. And he's really trying hard to get out of this loop. Like that's the reason trying to kill himself to end it. and he's
get that control,
getting a map of trying to find a way around where he is in the border. And you see these different other people who are in these very vivid and almost violent time loops and they're trying to get out of it, but they can't. What struck you there, Evan, in terms of that?
Just the whole like disparity of it. Like, dang, these people are truly suffering. Like they're gonna, like, there's no coming back from this stuff. And that's when I started getting worried for our characters. I'm like, oh man, I hope they don't stay, it's like, come on guys, let's go. And sometimes to mention that there were some times where this God is like kind of revealing itself to the people as in different viewpoints, like they are taking pictures of themselves and stuff, which I thought was very interesting and very much in the way a cult leader would do and say, hey, look, I'm watching you. Like, I'm over here, but I'm watching you. But that was interesting, and that played into it.
Yeah. Was it the cult leader, talkie guy, who was taking the pictures, or was it like the higher power alien spaceship people?
I think it was the spaceship alien thingy.
So this cult didn't have a leader as much as they were being manipulated by this oppressive alien or experimenting or something. So they're in these time loop and they're just like, look, we're just trying, we've kind of let go of the tug of war rope to just let go. We're in this. We might as well enjoy or settle into what we're a part of.
And here is where the part was that I had to suspend a little bit of some disbelief here because as if I saw this, I was like, okay, I'm out of here. Like, but no, they stay. It's like, come on, guys, why are you staying? Why are you staying? Like, but then I just had to put myself in their shoes. Like, they are invested in this cult. Like, they spent their formative years in this cult. So I guess, they owe it. They want to figure out what this is or try to achieve this. Oh, like the whole moon thing, the whole ascension thing, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's the culty language they use. They were using words like ascension, which there was code for one brother was like, "Oh, you're just going to kill yourself so you can die,"
Yeah.
or a UFO is going to get us, or that kind of thing. But there was these supernatural things going on, and then do you release and say we're going to stay because the supernatural thing's taking care of us, or is threatening us going to hurt us? We need to get out of here. And eventually, these brothers get to the point where they see the harm that's being done. The time limits are going like, we gotta escape. We got to get out of here. We're done. The big revelation is at the end, there's kind of like campfire circle. The people, the main characters, the main folks who are a part of this commune cult are either burned up or assumed or destroyed, and then they have to relive the same day over and over again, and that's why they haven't aged. Kind of like a Groundhog Day situation.
The key there is they set it up to where the fact is that you are that the person that's in the loop is aware.
Yep.
Of the loop. So that's a little mind twist, It's like that plays with the ending there, and so they were right. Like they had their suspicions were valid.
Yep.
At least the brother was.
Yeah.
What was up with the rope? I didn't get the rope that fell out of the sky and then felt for the tug of war thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a callback, I think, to the tug of war, and the rope fell out of the sky to say, yep, there is somebody. There's not just somebody on the ladder manipulated. It is a real thing that's being thrown down at them, and they kind of start over. That
was a powerful visual. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it was good. And then this kind of unbroken circle. What's endless? A circle, right? So they were standing in a circle.
Yes.
So you have a circle, you got wedding ring. Yeah, a good imagery of a circle, and the rope falls down in a circle and that kind of thing. So they play on that. I do like it. Again, it wasn't like this. They left it. They ended in a way. So spoilers, y'all. Go watch it. You can see the brothers escape, but you think they crash or maybe kill themselves, but then they literally escape. And so the cliffhanger at the end is, what do they do next? How do they live their life next? What are they being called to? Do they have a new appreciation of their lives apart from this? They're gonna seize the day and live life to the fullest, or is this commune or cult going to grow and take over the whole world, or what's kind of next? What are they going to do? Are they going to tell the world of what's going on over there, what's really going on over there, or are they going to live their lives? So I think it ends not with necessarily the brothers splitting up or one brother dying, one living. They do escape in a kind of dramatic way, but then the movie kind of ends with what's next. And I think we could do that with life and faith too. Like whenever we end our day, whenever we end a certain situation, we ask the question, what's next? How do I learn from this? And then what I do with this? And then how do I live my life moving forward?
Yeah, that ending was powerful. The whole, I love how the movie, they closed the circle. Like the whole thing was about control. And we realized that these people in the time loops were giving up control to this monster. Mm-hmm. And that monster just wanted them to be in that loop. They just wanted them to be there. And I could relate to that in the sense of how people have the problem with the angry God. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And why would God just kind of see us in our circle of violence and stuff like that? And then the movie does a beautiful thing where it gives you the example on what to do on the good alternative to not be so controlling and to not give control, is where the brother that wanted to stay the whole time said yes, I'm going to stay. But then the older brother said, you know what? This is what you want. And I'm going to respect that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to control you. I'll respect you for that. And I was like, oh, that's the lesson.
Yeah.
That's the lesson. And then the younger brother goes, okay, then that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted was you to not be controlling over me. I wanted you to stop doing that. So now let's go. So then they finally jump into the car and they switch roles and the older brother lets him drive. And
yeah, that's an amazing point. Yeah, that's right. Gives them control of that wheel to steer.
I was like, oof, that's it right there. And then do they escape? And it turns out, yes, they do. And the way, like you said, they leave it in a way where it's like the older brother's like, you play the music? Okay, it's fine. I'm not going to bother you. Or, oh no, the gas station, like you're not going to make it to the gas station. Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, coming from my, like you said, that my deconstruction, I didn't have trauma, but I did have to come out of a messy situation, and it was very much based on the fear that was behind the controlling of things. Like,
yeah, yep.
Like I had to control God, and with the fear of certainty like that, and I had to learn to let go of that kind of stuff. And there are different options than the mad God. There are humanity, and there's more of a loving God that is in the moments where you lose control, but that's where God is. Yeah. To live your life, you all have to lose it. That's the Newsboys, right?
Yeah, where they're building off scripture after Jesus talking about going to the cross. Yeah, I think that, controlling, uncontrolling, one of the friends of the pod, Tom Moorhead, he has a book called The Uncontrolling Love of God, there, how is God portrayed? I think that's, in terms of cult and signs of a cult and the metaphor of a cult, the leader, the manipulation, the control, that kind of thing, the illusion to make people do they really should do is a part of that. And I will say that one of the latest episodes of Systematic Ecology is the Church of Unitology, about the game with Dead Space, and they talk about the differences of a cult and a religion there a little bit. And then a friend of the pod, Brandon Knight, it's My Seminary Life, he talked about cults on some of his kind of world religions and different faiths and traditions as well. So there's a lot of research out there to look at. We won't spend a lot of time just dissecting what a cult is, but this movie does set that up, and it's pretty obvious, and it has a super sci-fi horror twist there at the end. I'm glad they made it out alive, and I did take away this kind of sense of how do you live your life to the fullest and get out of that rat race or the loop that you feel like you're trapped in, and that kind of thing. So that was powerful to me. Cool. Evan, final words, final thoughts of this movie. The fear of the unknown is real, but then once it's made known and is revealed and the truth is brought to light, perhaps we can make some more educated, heartfelt choices and health for one another. But what's some closing thoughts on this movie and what you're taking away from it?
I'm glad this movie I'm glad that this movie's out there. Yeah. And it gave me some validation, and it also challenged me in ways. And it reminded me of another film from way back in the day when I used to be big into independent film called Primer. It was it's probably the best time travel film I've ever seen, but it's very confusing. You have these two brothers, and they have to build a relationship, and kind of and the whole theme about control is there. So I'm glad this was recommended to me, and I look forward to see what other things these brothers do.
Yeah. I'll follow them too. And it's nice they're out there. They found their way into some mainstream stuff. But I'm with you. I'm glad this is a part of. It's not something I would normally kind of watch on my own, and I'm glad it was suggested, and then helps us kind of look at religion and how it's portrayed, or belief and belonging, and attachments and identity, how all those levels in terms of what make us as people and a part of our faith, and how that's done in a healthy way or unhealthy way. So I'm glad. I definitely would recommend this movie with the warning that it is horror. There's depictions of suicide and those kinds of things. If I knew the person, say you can handle these things, beware of this stuff if you can't. But to look at it from an artistic point of view, and also how the human nature is drawn towards belonging and being taken care of in a higher power, and what that looks like. The psychology behind that is very fascinating. Evan, would you recommend this movie to others?
I would. This is not for everyone, so it's kind of a selected thumbs up and recommendation. Yeah. But when, like, if I know someone and I know like what kind of films they like, I'll be like, hey, check this out when you have a clean, fresh mind, just go into a clean. So yes, I would.
Cool. Podcast, unfortunately, has an ending, and it can't go on forever. It's not endless. But folks, we're glad you made it to the end. And rate and review the podcast, share with a friend, smash that like button. Let us know what you think. What are some things out there that you see that you're geeking out on, that you want us to talk about, what you want us to dissect, what you want us to go deeper into, and we'll be happy to do that with you and for you. Thanks, folks. We're glad that you're listening. We're glad that you're engaging with us. And as always, remember, share the faith and share the geek.
Make sure you follow us on Instagram, catch us live at events we are holding or attending, get updates when we post new episodes of the podcast, see our other favorite content that we lift up and support, as well as just see our beautiful faces and engage with us through messages. Maybe watch a reel and give us the feedback of what you think of the show.
Hi, my name is TJ, and I'm here to tell you about the Anazal Ministry Podcast Network. We have a bunch of shows on AMP. You can follow the entire network in a single feed on Spotify at Anazal Ministry Podcasts, or on the network page on Apple Podcasts. Some of the ones we're running right now are the Homily, which is Pastor Will's homily messages from Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in Chapel Hill. We have the Whole Church Podcast, which one of my favorites. It's where myself and Joshua, we interview leaders from different denominations and backgrounds to work for a full church unity, Big C. We have My Seminary Life by Brandon Knight, former host on Systematic Ecology. He discusses his experience at seminary and discusses seminary topics so anyone can access the knowledge, which is kind of cool. It's like the book, Everything You Learn in Business School and then Everything You Don't Learn at Business School. It's great. We have Let Nothing Move You by Christian Ashley. He goes through the Bible kind of like it's a Bible study to explain the biblical narrative through his perspective and what he's learned. Dummy for Theology, which is Joshua's show, he discusses various theological topics in an attempt to show every side of big discussions. That leaves you with more questions than answers, which everyone loves a lot. It's kind of a continuation of a series that we did on Whole Church, but it's really good. It's really fun. We have the Bible After Hours, where the foul-mouthed preacher goes through the Bible from a progressive view to challenge the status quo of the modern church. I love that one. If you're from a more conservative background, that one I find will probably be the most helpful for you. Definitely check that out. And we have the Clydes. Taylor and Elizabeth Clyde go through weekly discussions in a devotional, conversational method to help us get closer to one another and God. That's just a little review of what we do in AMP and all of our other shows. So check that out, get subscribed, and just start getting all that free content.